is staring us in the face. There's a crypto that could do 100x off the back of the biggest emerging market to date. And I know everyone tells you that this crypto is going to do 100x, 1000x, but I mean, look at AI, right? Like, if you've seen it, I mean, unless you're living under a rock, you're just hearing AI everywhere. AI your dog, AI your cat, AI your nan. But in this video, I'm going to talk about that crypto, how it fits into this AI narrative, and what it essentially means for you and I, and how we can get in on it. But if you like the video and the channel, like and subscribe, it really helps me. But let's get into it. So AI, we've all heard it, and I've shown you before, so I won't show you again. OpenAI came out with the ChatGPT, and it absolutely took the world by storm, growing to 100 million users in just 2 months, something that took Spotify 11 years, which is absolutely crazy. But the problem with AI is it's so expensive, and as we're seeing, there's big demands on hardware, essentially GPUs, to process this language model data and process these training models to create the AIs that are ever evolving, becoming more and more complicated, requiring more processing power. So the problem with this is that the AI development, AI training is in the hands of a few. You need a lot of money, a lot of processing power to be able to create these language models. And that leaves it in the hands of a few companies that are worth billions of dollars, that have the funding to test this with little to no return in the short to medium term. So this leaves out the average guy looking to build an AI model for perhaps his app or something that he's trying to produce. AI is very limited to these few companies, and the current narrative is just driven by these companies. And yes, I know you're worried about AI taking over your job or whatever, but imagine you could just play League of Legends all day because you didn't have to work because AI was doing your job. It's not so bad, is it? But if we just take a look at the estimated training compute power cast in USD, this is how much more expensive AI is getting to train your models, because it's essentially supply and demand. There are not enough GPUs to go around, so the price goes up. People continue to pay them, obviously these big companies, because they have the money to do so. And if you just look at Nvidia's share price, absolutely skyrocket. We can see that over a year it has come up from 148, the lows of 120 to 622. I can guarantee their sales haven't got there, but it just shows the hype around. These are the main guys producing it. You can also see AMD share price absolutely skyrocketed. We can see they've skyrocketed as well because they're also producing GPUs. So how can the small guy get in on these AI developments? Bittensor, and Bittensor is essentially shared GPU power. So if you or I had a GPU, essentially we could host that as a node, and then people could access our GPU power for a much more reduced price than if they were to go out and buy a Nvidia chip for thousands of dollars, which obviously now is a highly inflated price. So they don't have to fork out, they can just use the GPU power when they need it. So this reduces the barrier to entry for the AI market. If you or I wanted to just build an AI model and we didn't have the GPU power on our computer, we could just go online, train our AI model using the Bittensor platform, and then essentially you could just run your processes, train your AI model for whatever you're trying to do. Because as we've seen with these AI models, they're not cross-platform, they're usually localized to something, right? If you're using anything, like if you're using Spotify and you play a song and it plays one after, this is using AI because it knows your music taste. So there's going to be so many little apps that people want to build, and they want to integrate their own AI elements into it, which these big companies are not going to be developing. So it really limits innovation in the space. So by reducing the barrier to entry for GPU power, anyone can build their own AI model without substantial cost. And this is essentially what Bittensor looks to do. By democratizing and decentralizing compute power of GPUs, anyone can just build these AI apps. And that's essentially why I think Bittensor has the potential to do very well. If we look at Nvidia, obviously AMD as well, Nvidia's at a 1.5 trillion market cap. And if you just even compare that from down here, it's nearly 5x. So 1.2 trillion of that is just purely from AI hype. We've actually seen NVIDIA start to get threatened by this potential update, because we've seen that NVIDIA backs decentralized cloud provider Ether for future of AI, and essentially they do the same thing in that they basically allow you to access GPU power online through their system. So NVIDIA sees this as a really big potential, and obviously Ether is also on the chain. So where does crypto come into this? Obviously the decentralized aspect of it. And essentially, if you were a node operator and someone was to use the platform and use your GPU, you would get paid in the native token. So this would drive people to use the native token in exchanging services on the platform. So if you were holding the token and more people came into it and the trading volume went up because people were actually using it because of the utility, you're going to see an increase in your holdings essentially without having to do anything. And that's what you got to look out for in crypto, right? So AI is one of the biggest driving narratives in the world right now, as well as in crypto. So if we can get on the hype train around that, and one of the biggest pain points right now is this problem with the GPU space. There's a very limited amount of chips, and you even see that AI is getting used in cars. So we're getting AI chips put into cars, and obviously you'd think how many cars are on the road, right? Considering that, like, your car is going to have an AI chip, and there's billions, probably like high millions of cars on the road, so we're going to need a chip for every single one of those. So there's not enough chips to go around. But imagine that car could connect to the cloud, use the GPU of the cloud, and then essentially it wouldn't have to have its own chip installed. It would just be able to access that directly. So I think this is the way that AI is going to go, where we're going to have all the compute power in the cloud instead of having it in localized systems, as we've already seen with storage online, such things as like Google Drive, iCloud, etc. This is the way it's going to go, and we're not quite there yet, so we're very early in the trend. The other thing as well is, if Bittensor has this platform, people would have to sign up to their privacy concerns or whatever in their terms and conditions. So we would have much more control of our privacy than AI just running rampant and just searching everything on the web. There will be limitations to what it can do based on the terms and conditions of the platform. So there's definitely a lot here to unpack, and I would suggest doing your own research into these projects before FOMOing in and just buying just based on what I said essentially. But I think this is the best narrative I've seen in crypto, because it really ties well into the real world, into the biggest growing industry in the real world right now that we haven't even seen the start of yet. ChatGPT is just the first iteration that people can just do some writing with, but imagine the capabilities of AI, especially when things start talking to each other, and imagine the compute power required to do that. And we don't have enough chips. Like, NVIDIA can't produce these fast enough. That's why they're investing in Aether, and we can only get that kind of compute power if we can summon the power of chips that were already created. Obviously, they've been creating chips for years. There's tons of GPUs out there that are available. Someone just needs to harness them and create a platform that we can utilize them and sell them. We can sell the power to essentially someone else looking to do that. So just to recap, essentially this is just great for the potential for people to develop their own AI models, and obviously if they work and they grow, then Bittensor would get used more, and essentially people would just move to it because the price will be a lot cheaper than buying an NVIDIA chip. So the real thing is hopefully that this will bring this graph down, so we'll see a growth and then a drop off as people move to using cloud compute power, because obviously if they're buying a chip and they can't do what they're trying, or their AI model gets too complicated, then they need to buy more chips, wait for those to get delivered. But imagine you could just access it like Amazon AWS, where you could just scale up your server when you needed more, scale it down when you needed more, and you never have fixed costs essentially. So you don't have to outlay a ton of money, you don't have fixed costs, you don't have to keep running the servers, the chips, etc. Things just kind of work as you need them, and that's pretty much what everyone wants in society, businesses, etc. They don't want fixed costs, they don't want to outlay a ton of money, and Bittensor is really positioning itself to take hold of that. So where do we go from here, right? If we look at Bittensor already, it's come up a lot. I mean, I'm looking at all time, but if we look at 1 year, we're up 370% with a $2.7 billion market cap, which does sound huge. But when compared to the 1.2 trillion that NVIDIA has seen from this AI hype, it seems pretty small. So I think we could do at least a 10x from here. Potential to do 100x as this gets adopted more and more. It's not going to be an overnight thing. This is going to be a proof of concept thing. As this grows and grows and grows, which it is, then more people will buy in essentially, and we'll start looking for some outside investment, because there's real world applications for this. Unlike a lot of cryptos, which are just a bunch of fun coins, etc., this is probably one that has the most utility that I've seen in the space. But obviously do your own research. This is not financial advice. I just think this is a really cool project. And if you like the video, like and subscribe.